Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 473 for the 12th of November 2017. Richard Saunders here with you, still in Sydney, Australia. Still a little bit under the weather, but getting there, I think. Coming up on this week's show, we're going to kick off with an interview I did with Ross Blocher from Oh No, Ross and Carrie, the Oh No, Ross and Carrie podcast. I met up with Ross once again recently in Las Vegas at CSIcon. And I know a lot of Skeptic Zone listeners enjoy the Oh No, Ross and Carrie podcast. And it was just terrific to see Ross. Hadn't seen him for a few years. Anyway, that's to kick off this week's episode. Following that, it's a press release, a news item from the Northern Territory government about a Northern Territory man who claimed to cure a range of medical illnesses and addictions through mind communication and the actions taken against him. Then to round off the show, a grain of salt with Eran Segev. What an interesting one this week, folks. What an interesting one. Eran chats to Jessica Schab and Élisabeth Feytit about what it was like, or what it is like, to be a former spiritual speaker, crystal child, new age guru. Now, Jessica was all these things, and she was feted around the world, and she had lots of followers. And then she realized that, that wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. Jessica and Élisabeth chat to Eran about the process and the documentary films associated. I think you'll find this interview particularly fascinating. And don't forget to look at the accompanying show notes for this week for extra information about, all the segments on this week's show. Listener Jay Frost reminds me that he's been working on a page over at devicewatch.org about the Rife machines. Yeah, I sort of remember those. It says here, Spooky 2 is an array of devices based on the theories of Royal Raymond Rife, an American inventor. These are sort of machines that supposedly could diagnose or treat or something the body. Complete quackery, but Device Watch, and I'm just clicking over there at the moment, is certainly worth a visit. Sort of like Quack Watch. Links in the show notes. Now, what a busy week. What a busy week coming up. Let's see. Let's start on Tuesday here in Sydney. Bunga Bunga Live with Tim Ferguson and Maynard at the Harold Park Hotel. You can still get tickets. That's at maynard.com.au. You can get those tickets or just turn up on the night. The Harold Park Hotel this Tuesday night here in Sydney, just near Glebe. Tickets are only $15. What a bargain. And Monday night at the Blue Mountains, in the Blue Mountains here just near Sydney, at the Grand View Hotel, which is a hotel in Wentworth Falls. It's the inaugural get-together for the Blue Mountain Skeptics group. I guess this is a very new group. And it's a meet-up group. It says this will be an informal meeting for people to get to know each other and make plans for future of the group. The meeting will be in the small lounge off the main bar at the Grand View. So I'm looking at going up there tomorrow night, Monday night, to be part of that. If you want more information, just go to meetup.com.au/ostskeptics. And you should find some information there. Again, a link in the show notes. Well, that's enough for me at the moment. I'm going to run downstairs and have some ginger tea. Ginger tea is quite nice, quite like ginger tea. It helps calm the nerves a little bit, I guess, and tastes quite good. It's good on a hot day or a cold day, ginger tea. I should buy shares in the company. Is there a company? While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. But not Carrie this time. Hello, Ross.
Just Oh No Ross.
Oh No Ross, how are you?
Very well. Good to be here, and always great to see you, Richard.
Yeah.
One of my favorite skeptics from down under.
Thank you.
One of my favorite skeptics, period.
Well, that's very nice of you to say so. I enjoyed your talk very much. For the Skeptic Zone audience who weren't here at CSIcon, what was the flavor of your talk?
So I called it planting seeds, not flags, and the encouragement. Well, I talked about the podcast and what we do, investigating claims of the paranormal, religion, all of the firsthand, hands-on investigations that we do. But then I talked about how we've kind of learned to exercise the muscle of absorbing the things people say that can sometimes get a mean reaction from skeptics or a negative reaction, and to just give that extra moment of reflection before returning back, and that can often, if you do that, that can help you be kinder, and that can help you be more sympathetic, and maybe build a friendship that will pay off in the long run. And that's what I was encouraging everyone to exercise that skill. And
also during the course of your presentation, you showed little videos and photographs of some of your Ono, Ross and Carrie adventures along the way. How long has it been now since you kicked off that podcast?
About 6.5 years, and I know you talked to me on the show about 6 years ago, I think.
Yes, yeah, a long time ago, and I'll put it in the show notes, folks, that you can listen to the very time I interviewed Ross and Carrie. I met you at TAM, you too, and you said you were doing this podcast. I said, right, and we ran straight up to your room, I think it was.
Yeah.
You guys sat on the bed, and I interviewed you there on the spot, because I thought, great, a new podcast, let's see what these...
Yeah.
And you're still doing it.
Yeah, I remember at the time I was listening to a ton of podcasts, and still do, and thinking, just, what can I contribute to this? And felt a little audacious even trying to add to the mix of skeptical podcasts. It's tough work, too, as you know well, keeping it going, especially weekly. We now do weekly investigations, which is even harder.
Yeah.
So, it's been a labor of love, but it's the kind of thing we enjoy doing. So we really love that we have so much support and that we can make this our job or side job.
Is there going to be an Oh No the book?
Oh No the book. It's a great idea because there's so much material.
You've got so much material. Honestly, all these investigations and perspectives and insights.
For the presentation today, I was just listing out all the investigations we'd done to make a list of it and realized, wow, we've really covered a lot. Because when I try to remember it off the top of my head, my brain can't coalesce all of the dozens of things we've looked into over the years. But then when I saw it all on paper there and it didn't fit on one slide, I was flummoxed. So, there's a lot of material there. It's a good idea. I should talk to Carrie about that.
Have a think about it.
Yeah.
And I like the title, too. Oh No, the book. Oh, no.
Oh, what's wrong with this book?
What's wrong with this? Don't
what's
open
it going to do to me?
And over all these years, I mean, there must be some particular standouts, right? Things that are still in your head now, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of our first investigations, I think when we talked to you, we had already spent time with the Mormon Church. And
that was a very early one, right?
Very early, like third, fourth episode, something like that. But they made such an impression on us because they matched our own enthusiasm, I think like no one else has. And so that stayed with us and really informed kind of what we've done forward. And then Scientology, of course, has become a huge investigation for us, not only in terms of hours. It was many hours of content, but I think a lot of people have found us that way. And Scientology, everyone is so fascinated with, I think, just because it does cult, like more in a more extreme fashion than anybody else. And I use the word cult advisedly, and they are a cult, no question about it. So we found out they were every bit as dangerous and deleterious as you would assume, but at the same time incredibly boring. I was talking about that.
We saw the photograph, actually. Maybe there was a photograph of you and Carrie bored out of your heads. And
bored out of our gourds. Yeah, indeed. That was just from one piece of our investigation. One episode was about Dianetics. We took a Dianetics course, and it was over 2 days, a Saturday and Sunday, 22 hours inside the Church of Scientology. And I had to not fight my way out, but I had to really kind of push and run out just on the second day because they wanted to send me off to another thing. They find endless ways to keep you engaged in doing senseless things just to keep you there.
Is boredom a large part of the things you investigate? Or is it because the other people who are there are more engaged in your your brain's struggling?
It's very rare that I will get to a point where I am personally bored and I want out of the situation. I think I have a higher threshold than other people do, but Scientology was one of them. I remember sitting in it wasn't even that Dianetics course. It was like an auditing session where I just thought, oh, get me out of this. There's no way out. As they say in Scientology, the only way out is through, and that was
the only way out is through.
Yes, meaning you can't quit on this process.
You have to go right through.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And I remember being filled with this dismay, I am stuck here.
And we have a brief mention to the fact that the Skeptic Zone has been playing Ross and Carrie promotions for quite a while now, and I love the more recent one where we've got that wonderful voiceover guy.
Yeah. So we told him we wouldn't share his name, but he was somebody who did voiceover work for Scientology for many years, featured in many of their videos, and he did a promo for us, which is amazing.
Oh, I'll play that promo, folks. I'll play it immediately after this interview. So, in the looking ahead to the next years, are you doing it with an eye to keep doing it for years, or are you just doing it as you do it?
Carrie and I both have so much fun doing this, and our friendship, I think, is so. We're in sync on wanting to keep doing it until we're old and gray. So, that's our plan. We have a very long list that will keep... It's a Google Doc that we share, and we add new ideas, and people send us new ideas, 10, 15 a day, 20 a day, I don't know what it is. But, we try our best to respond to everything and add ideas to this list if we don't already have them. But it's an amazing collection now of different belief systems and alternative remedies and products that are supposed to help you lose weight or, whatever.
The whole idea is you and Carrie do them so the listeners don't have to. They can listen to your adventures, right?
Right. So a lot of people will send us something that, maybe their coworker was telling them about, saying, hey, can you do this so I don't have to? And so we have years worth of material, even if we just kept doing, what we're doing now, what we have on our list already.
Yeah. And the list is extensive.
Yeah, and it's always ongoing. So we always have maybe 3 or 4 things that we're working on at any given time.
Right.
Because especially now to have things ready on a weekly basis, we have to have been working on them for a while, especially long-term ones. So, for example, we just did a class recently, and it was part 3 in a course that we've now been taking for 2 years. And it's a long story,
wow.
But we haven't released any of it yet because we're waiting until we do the 4th part of this class.
That's crazy. Over years.
Yeah. We're just holding on to it. We recorded the 3rd portion. We couldn't even remember the fake names we had created for the people we were talking about. And we didn't go back to listen, so we just said, well, here's their names now, and maybe they'll end up being the same. Who knows?
And finally, I do admire your adoption of technology, because some of the video you shoot is actually 360, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's that? Is that paying off? Is that a worthwhile thing?
Well, we don't do that regularly. We should, actually. I wish video was a bigger component of what we do. We'll shoot things on our phones a lot. It's just, video production takes so long.
Oh, yeah.
And so we did the 360 video in particular for a cancer clinic tour that we went to in Tijuana, Mexico. So we boarded this bus. They drove us down there. And they were okay with everybody filming, which is rare in our investigations. Usually we don't get to film. Yeah. And so I had this Ricoh Theta S. That's the name of it.
Okay.
It's a very affordable, kind of entry-level 360-degree camera. So you hold it up.
You just hold it in front of you.
Yeah, and it's filming your hand, it's filming you, it's filming the ceiling, it's filming all around you all at once. And so what I then did was I used that as an experiment to try to edit in 360 and cut together scenes, little vignettes of every location we visited so people could step into our shoes. I hope to do that in the future.
I enjoyed that. It was something that I've not seen too much of. And it worked very well, because you can spin the video around yourself to see what you want to look at.
Right, yeah, it kind of puts you there. And I'm a big fan of VR, and I have a HTC Vive at home and the PlayStation VR. My son and I both, compete against each other in VR games. So, always trying out new technology.
Well, Ross, please give our best to Carrie when you see her. And
will do, thank you.
Everybody here was looking forward to meeting her, but things come up and people can't always meet. Indeed, Randy couldn't be here
Yes.
as we know, which is a great shame, but I understand he's feeling somewhat better. But give her our best, and
Will do.
Congratulate her and you on a wonderful podcast and many years of success.
Thank you so much, Richard, and to all our friends at the Skeptic Zone.
From the dawn of time, one podcast has unlocked the secrets of science and technology to enrich the lives of billions. And now, after a year where they've unlocked the golden age of knowledge, they're about to hit warp speed and go stratospheric.
Wait, hold up.
On Oh No, Ross and Carrie, we don't make extraordinary claims. We investigate them.
We go undercover with fringe religious groups, investigate paranormal claims, and we participate in pseudoscientific medical treatments and then report our findings to you.
And yes, we've even investigated Scientology.
Shh, Ross, shh. New episodes every month at MaximumFun.org.
Oh No, Ross and Carrie. They show up so you don't have to.
And now a story that comes to us from Michelle Franklin in the Northern Territory. You may remember in the past we've spoken to Michelle about things like the Humpty-Doo poltergeist. And now she's sending us a media release from the Northern Territory Consumer Affairs, dated the 8th of November 2017. Media release. So-called healer Colin Thompson permanently banned. A former Howard Springs man who claimed to cure a range of medical illnesses and addictions through mind communication and supernatural healing has been permanently banned from conducting his business in the Northern Territory. Following action by Northern Territory Consumer Affairs, Colin Thompson, trading as esoteric mind specialist, was also restrained from making any representations that he has the ability to cure addiction or medical conditions through mind communication or supernatural healing for a period of 5 years. In July 2015, Consumer Affairs Commissioner Gary Clements issued a public warning to Territorians not to deal with Mr. Thompson, who could not substantiate the efficacy of his treatment, which he described as miraculous and supernatural. Mr. Clemens said, quote, "Consumer protection laws require that any claim made by a business when they market their products and services are accurate, truthful, and can be proven," end quote. As an aside, wow, or duh, or yes, or can of worms, or most of the claims of alternative medicine. We continue. As a result of local court proceedings, Mr. Thompson also deregistered his business name and business bank account. Consumer Affairs had earlier taken steps to shut down his websites where he promoted such claims as, quote, "General practitioners, specialists and surgeons can't cure anything for anyone," end quote, and, quote, "There is nothing in the physical world to take away the cause of an ailment permanently," end quote. Mr. Clemens said, quote, "As a regulator, our concern is to protect the vulnerable, people seeking relief from serious medical conditions or addictions, particularly in the area of health services where there is a risk that people could stop conventional treatments. Businesses must ensure that claims about their therapies are supported by credible and reliable results. They must not make false claims about the quality, history, benefits, performance, or origin of a product or service," end quote. And that media release comes to us from the Northern Territory Consumer Affairs, based in Darwin. For more information, see this week's show notes or visit www.consumeraffairs.nt.gov.au. Quackwatch, your guide to quackery, health fraud, and intelligent decisions, operated by Stephen Barrett, MD. Quackwatch is now an international network of people who are concerned about health-related frauds, myths, fads, fallacies, and misconduct. Its primary focus is on quackery-related information that is difficult or impossible to get elsewhere. Articles on quackery include quackery. How should it be defined? How it sells. 26 ways to spot it. How it harms cancer patients. 7 warning signs for bogus science. Why health professionals become quacks. And many more, including in-depth looks at acupuncture, chiropractic, homeopathy, naturopathy, and much more. Visit www.quackwatch.com.
Let's all take this with a grain of salt. Here's Eran Segev.
Hi, my name is Jessica Schab. I am a former crystal child, spiritual leader, healer, and I'm going to be talking about my changes.
Changes as in moving away from
yes, to becoming a skeptic. Yeah.
And I'm Élisabeth Feytit, and I'm a producer, documentary film producer, and I'm producing a film about Jessica's story.
Which is called?
Which is called Memoirs of a Former Mystic.
And I think that kind of tells us quite a lot.
It does.
So, Jessica, can you maybe we obviously don't want to give away the whole movie, but maybe if you could give us a bit of an outline of the story. When did you start being in the mystical world, and what happened?
Oh my gosh. So I pretty much had a father that was very involved after having strokes in the mystical world. And he felt that he was channeling angels and aliens and things like this, and that they were telling him about me and my mission. And I'm very important. I'm here to help save the world and help bring enlightenment and stuff like this. And I was very uncomfortable with it, but and I was always actually fighting him with it.
So how old were you?
I was. It actually started when my sister died at age 16.
Yeah, and you were.
I was 16, and my sister was 19.
Okay.
And so I was very much upset with this because I was not comfortable with this. I was actually quite shy, and it was fighting my father all the time. And then he passes away. He dies, and I'm 21, and I start to feel very, very guilty, and maybe my dad was just trying to help, and maybe there is something because people were encouraging me also from what my dad was saying, and so it ended up opening, I just felt that I had to make things right with my dad. So I started to talk about the things that my dad was talking about, and this got a lot of interest from a lot of people, and actually, I was invited to go to Australia to the Nexus Congress, where I ended up meeting Project Camelot, and there were a lot of people there that were telling Project Camelot, you have to interview this girl, you have to interview this girl. And from that interview, I ended up becoming quite well known overnight as this mystic crystal child, and there are so many factors that got me started. I want to keep it short because I wrote lots and lots of blogs about how it all started, but I really just thought I was helping. That's what it comes down to. And slowly the doubt started to creep in. I started to realize that these beliefs could actually be quite dangerous for my mind.
Was there a trigger for that?
There were a couple triggers. There's one that is in the trailer that I don't know if I'm allowed to say. If I should know, I'm not allowed to. Another one was going to Bali. I was going there to do a spiritual workshop, and Diego Fontanive, who was giving a speech about skepticism as a mean, I met him there, and he got me to really think about what I was doing and if it was actually true, and that was very, very hard because I had a following, I had support, was traveling and flying all over the world to speak and heal, and so to suddenly think about myself without these beliefs, to suddenly think that this isn't true, was a very existential crisis for me, because I didn't know what to think, what to do. How do you think outside the beliefs? They become very like a virus. They start to really compromise all your thinking, and everything you see is through the spiritual filter. And then when you start to question it, it starts to fight back. And so Diego really helped me continue on to push through this, and we have a project where we help people now deal with overcoming spiritual New Age beliefs and the conditioning, and even the exploitation, and how it can make people's minds quite fragile and gullible. And I was in Bali, I noticed that, because I met Diego around the time of 2012, right? The end of the world, remember that?
Yeah.
So...
one of the ends of the world.
Actually, there's so many.
A major one.
There's so many. And...
there was one this week as well.
Yeah, that's
yesterday.
right. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was really horrible, because a lot of people, Australians were there, and Americans, and they were doing all these spiritual workshops, all the things that I at one point was promoting, and these people actually ended up in mental institutions shortly after, doing all these activations and spending large amounts of money. And it was very disturbing to realize that, okay, not only am I not helping, I'm creating some serious damage. And so in my trailer, I propose a question or a series of multiple choice. If you're in my situation and you find out, you're being worshipped, and you want to now tell your followers really, what's going on, and that they're not really seeing you for who you actually are, but an idea of you, what would you do? Right? So I can't give that away either, because that's in the trailer. But so there's a series of multiple choice questions, and I chose one where I ended up finding that all my followers and people who loved me and supported me called me evil, said I was brainwashed by Diego, I was a liar, a traitor, and just overnight it just became, they just turn on you. And it was very fascinating to see how shallow we can be, when I only like you only if you believe what I believe, right? I mean, we see this in religion too all the time, So, yeah, I can go on and on. So when do you let me know when you want me to stop?
Yeah.
It's super long.
And so, Élisabeth, how did you become involved in this? How did you find out about the story, and what made you interested in it?
Well, I had a very special interest towards New Age beliefs. So I had 2 years ago, I was doing a research on the internet, and I found out about Jessica. I didn't know her, but I stumbled upon her videos because she's all over the internet. And I saw her interviews at the time when she was talking and saying, yes, I'm a crystal child. I'm here to, save the planet with love and consciousness,
so
and this kind of stuff. Prehistorical.
But before Jessica, before you moved away from this world.
These videos I was watching were from her past.
Also, the videos were from the past.
And so I got intrigued. So I looked at more interviews and more videos of her 2 years ago. And then I saw that she had shifted. She had gone from being a crystal child from the New Age movement to a skeptic. And so I thought, okay, she's really, really interesting. And she had this charisma and very friendly way of exposing, because sometimes, people are very serious, it's boring, and she had this way of triggering, attention and interest in these questions, because sometimes skepticism is seen as something, why would I spend time and effort to do this? It's not very glamorous.
I think the family members of pretty much everybody in this room during this conference would agree.
Exactly. So she had this way of conveying this new mental state she was in, which was a skeptical one, that made me think, okay, I'd really like to speak to her. So actually I contacted her on the internet, but I lived in France at that moment, and I ended up actually going to Portugal to meet her and Diego, because they live together. So, and then I really understood that she was actually exposing and working on a daily basis with other, New Agey people who want to get out of it. And it's so difficult because it's a whole conditioning. And it's not just actually the New Age beliefs. There are roots behind that. It's just like someone who says, oh, I want to quit. I'm an alcoholic. I want to quit But how do you do it if you don't understand what's
Right.
behind? It's not just alcohol. It's a lot of many things behind that you have to understand. If you don't understand and you quit alcohol, you might, but then you will turn to something else to compensate because there's a problem at the root of it.
So I would like to turn to Jessica for a moment to actually refer to exactly that. People find it very difficult to let go of things that do not affect their livelihood, do not affect their entire relationship with the world around them. Just simply, alcohol or cigarettes or whatever. The shift that you had to make was significantly bigger in terms of its, not just the philosophical or psychological one, but in real everyday implications. I presume that you had some livelihood based on your previous life.
What do you mean by livelihood?
Income.
I had donations. I lived off of donations because we grew up very poor as a family, 5 kids, and my mother was very sick and nobody would help us because we didn't have any money. So I was like, if I ever get a chance, I'm going to help freely, unconditionally, because that's what we're meant to be, like trees. And so I would always refuse donations or refuse to do it for money. I wanted to be an example and show how the universe really worked, how we were really meant to be. And that just ended up, people were like, I want to really support you. Can you just please put up a donation button? And I actually could have made a lot more money because if I was business savvy, and I'm not at all, listening to your talk. It is what it is. But it's amazing how many people this is $1 billion industry. It's
So, but you still had some income coming from it, or so
after I changed.
No, before.
I had just I had my expenses covered basically, and to travel and to every time I was saying I'm going to this or that country, they would let me stay with them for free, cover all my expenses. I was considered royalty or something of an angel. They have to look after a traveling guru, something like this. Yeah.
My expectation was, the big traveling gurus, exactly like you say. So I was expecting that you had to put behind a financial side as well, but I presume that because
you did. Because all the money you had was coming from donations, and you didn't have a job. Yeah. You just had this job was
true. Yeah, but
doing what you were doing.
It was just enough to get by, though. It wasn't like I was making lots. I could have, but
yeah. So I'm just thinking a bit about it as there's ministers of religion who lose their faith, and it's something that's happened. It probably happens a lot more often than we hear about, but there's also quite a few known cases that we hear about. And one of the things that happens is that first they lose their faith. So they lose God, which was a very prominent figure in their lives. Whether real or fictitious doesn't matter. It's very important and real in their lives.
Very true.
And then if it's actually their profession and their community, and moving away from that is very difficult because you lose your livelihood, you lose your community, sometimes you lose your family, and all of these things together are so difficult that there are people there's actually online forums for ministers of religion where they don't identify themselves, but they're atheists on the inside. They basically live double lives. It requires some mental strength and determination to actually make that shift. So what do you think gave you that strength and determination?
I have a strong sense of responsibility and really wanting to do what's right, really wanting to help, and to be tempted to sell out and all these kind of things. Sure, it might be profitable in the beginning, but we're selling out all of humanity too. We're selling out our chance for our psyche to evolve, So I thought, I'm bringing the world the truth, all this hidden information that they don't want us to know, so that we can have our infinite potential. And so I always just really wanted to be honest with myself, and I knew sometimes I was afraid to be honest for what it would mean, or afraid to question my dad, because if I did, he's dead, and I'm then feeling like I'm betraying him as well, right? Because I want to be a good daughter. I was very motivated by goodness, and this is a religious thinking, a religious mindset. And for me, I couldn't live with myself. knowing what I knew now about, what I found when I started to really doubt and started to see more and more of the conditioning and the mental instability this movement was spreading, and the abuse as well. I found that my beliefs also led me to an abusive relationship, and they held me in it too, because your soul chose this. You have to heal his heart with unconditional love and he will change. Oh, it was horrible, because all that did was just encourage him to treat you still horribly, right? And so I watched these beliefs encourage narcissism, encourage abuse, encourage Stockholm Syndrome. And so the more I realized everybody else was like thinking the same way and paying lots for these workshops to become this, to have some sort of, this was the idea of the secret, I couldn't live with myself. I could not stay silent.
So, Élisabeth, you now know Jessica very well. How long have you been working together?
I would say we've known each other for 2 years now, and we've been working specifically on her film for a few months, but we also worked on Diego's film together because we are co-authors of Diego Fontanive's film All Is Not Well. The
things that Jessica just described, the processes that she's gone through, as an external observer who now knows her well, how do you see it? What's your perspective on it?
Well, to me, this is a very outstanding and unique story, and for a producer, obviously, it's gold. But on a personal level, I'm very admirative of her attitude, because obviously, nobody does this. She was really on the stage. She was someone who was well-known and more than well-known. And when she turned her back to this belief, she had a kind of storm against her. But she did it. And your question is a very important question, because why would she do this? And she has a lot of strength and determination. There's not even a question for her to go back to this or to... It's just obvious to her. And that's so incredible, because most gurus, what do? They just love the attention, the consensus, and the money, and everything they can get from this. They travel around the world, and that's what she was doing too. So I'm very, I think, she has this strength and personal quality that led her to make this very unique choice. And I love being part of this, being able to share and educate people about this, because I think it actually can make us all think about our own beliefs and how difficult it is, but we have to face them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not just religious beliefs, it's many other beliefs we have in our lives we don't really want to notice or be conscious of, that lead us to stupid stuff, to stupid reactions, to stupid decisions. And it's not because we're skeptics that we have better lives than people who are believers,
Yeah. There's a question that I like to ask skeptics, and the range of answers is surprising, but the most common answer is just being stumped and not knowing what to say. That is, what major thing in your life that you used to believe you've changed your view on? So you used to have a certain point of view, but you've learned more, you've become more educated, maybe new evidence came to light, maybe things have changed, and you have changed your opinion. And for most people, the answer is either they can't name one thing that they've changed their opinion on. And we're talking about good skeptics who really think critically about the world and all of that.
Wow, I have thousands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're talking, people just generally find that they're stumped by this question. They don't know. Or it's not really major stuff. And I know for myself, I can point to a few things, but it's not life-changing stuff. And even those things that are much smaller in nature, they're important beliefs, things more even moral choices that I've made that I've changed my opinion on. I can't even fathom what it would be like to change your view of who you are, of your place in the world. I think it requires great courage, and I admire you for it, Jessica. Finally, Élisabeth, if you could I know you're working on several projects, if you could just mention what they are and where people can find more information about them.
Yes. So I have two major projects at the moment, which are at a stage of pre-production. So we're actually at the moment looking for funds and support for these films. So Jessica's films called Memoirs of a Former Mystic, and she has a Facebook page, and you can find information, but I guess maybe you can put some links.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say a bit about the film. It's going to be very playful because this is the way I think it's a good way to get people to think. It's like I call it a warm embrace, but a slap in the face simultaneously as well. And where skeptic documentaries, they're mostly about exposing and sometimes even making fun of because they're ridiculous. I'm doing the same, but I'm exposing myself and I'm making fun of myself because it is very embarrassing to watch my old videos. And it's a form of therapy as well. It's a blasphemy that we must mock what was once something that we thought was so important, destroy these archetypes that were really thinking for us rather than our own mind. The other element of it is I have animation in it. I'm sure I'm allowed to say that. And it's to show the mechanics of the thoughts behind the thoughts that influence and their relationship with each other, how they interact. Because I really want, and what I sum this documentary up as is to study our own self-deception, how we manipulate ourselves, the mechanics, how does it work, why are we not able to see it, and it's done in the way of the never-ending story. I'm not sure if you know this film, and I love this film. And what I love is this idea that you think you're watching an innocent documentary, just a biography about a girl's life, but I'm actually talking about everybody. It's very interactive. I'm always referring to the audience and giving them questions. I'm challenging them along the way. I'm showing them my patterns, and they think it's about me, but it's actually about them. And I'm setting up potholes for them along the way. I want to see how many traps they fall into. At the end, it'll be like a little bit of a questionnaire to see how well they did. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
And the other film I was actually presenting also at this Skeptics European Congress is Diego Fontanive's film called All Is Not Well, an investigation into the gamble with our psyche. So it's all about beliefs also, and how, as you just mentioned it, most of the time we don't really know how skepticism changed our lives, because I think we don't really apply skepticism to our own thinking, and it needs courage and responsibility. And that's the point of the second film with Diego, which is really about questioning, being skeptical about our own beliefs and things that we think are so natural and normal,
like family relationships,
that we don't question them, So I think that's a major question for skeptics, actually, because I think it's easy to, criticize what society does, fake news or paranormal beliefs and stuff you don't even believe in yourself. It's easy to see in the other, what they don't see. But to see in yourself and to have the tools, the skills, and I think this needs training, actually, brain training, mind training, to really be able to question your own fallacies and not just judging the others, fallacies in judging yourself. That's another thing. And I think skeptics should really go this way, because that's the future, I think, of really changing the minds. If I can add something, I think if people are so gullible and believe in fake news and believe in New Age, which is a far-fetched, belief about aliens and angels and love is all and this kind of stuff, it's not because they're stupid, and we know that it's not the case. Yes. It's just because they have a mental conditioning that is there. And you can talk to them very rationally and scientifically and prove to them that it's not true. There's no foundation whatsoever about this. They will never stop believing. Why? Because the first thing they have to look at is, why do they believe in this? What's the foundation? What's the conditioning they in the first place have that makes them so sure about this? And in the case of Jessica, I think New Age beliefs were very much anchored in Christianity beliefs, in Christian beliefs, and the goodness, the love, and the will to help.
Maybe I could interrupt for a second. Was your family deeply Christian?
We could say I was raised in a sort of actually a cult that was half Christian, half Jewish. Very strange. It was called the Worldwide Church of God, and it had some problem and it went down, but it was like weird. It was controlled. You weren't allowed to eat pork or stuff like this, or seafood, and you could only go to church on Saturday instead of Sunday, and so it was very weird. But a lot of it was mostly Christian, so it was very heavily influenced, and so a lot of spiritual New Age people easily always tie in, Christian beliefs with it. Yeah. So. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you for that question.
Well, all I want to say, and I think that's actually what I want to do with the film I produce, is really to make us all question our beliefs and be aware that we all have beliefs. And the point is not to get rid of beliefs, because we can't. Mm-hmm. But some of them are very harmful, are more harmful than others. And if we don't question them, if we think that goodness is always good for us, for example, then it can lead us to stupid and very harmful things and preaching that lead people to mental hospitals, So it's sometimes tricky, but if we don't train our minds to this and be curious about what's in our mind, what's the foundation of our thinking? Are we thinking on our own? Are we really thinking, or are we just reproducing memes, which is obviously a great theme here at this Congress, on a personal level, then we won't change our mind. And if we are not convinced anymore by the anti-vaccine thing, then we will shift to something else, because there's something behind that's still there, the initial conditioning.
Absolutely. Jessica, Elisabeth, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What if you woke up one day to find out that you were a drug dealer and you didn't even know it? I was a spiritual leader. I had fame, followers, support, and constant confirmation. I was invited to speak all over the world about my message. So what led me to walk away from it all? We are the universe. We are unconditional love. And we need to wake up to our potential, because it is our divine birthright.
She's so anxious. More. Wow. I want more.
She's amazing.
Bliss.
She's an angel.
Bliss.
It's like they're under some kind of a spell.
Aha.
It was him.
Huh? That was not me. That was her.
How dare you accuse Jessica Mystic of such a thing? It was you pig.
It was clearly the guy.
Why do they refuse to admit it was me? You think you're really helping, only to find out it's just the opposite. So what would you do if you were in this position? Do you A, forget you found this out and continue on looking for ways to justify that it is okay? B, stop doing it immediately, disappear, and beat yourself up forever? Or C, face the humiliation. You now see it as hype, creating gullibility, and you decide to make people aware of it. So what would you choose?
Why has Jessica turned to the dark side? Why is she doing this? Or what happened to her?
Jessica Schab has gone and kind of dismissed her old self.
She's confused, and I do feel sorry for her.
She presents a narcissistic narrative.
It's written all over her aura and her energy that she will never see a penis again.
I started spreading spiritual New Age beliefs when I was in my teens. And where did all this lead me? Alas, to nothing but confusion, escape, and self-manipulation. How come it took me 15 years to see that? Thank you so much for all your beautiful words and responses. Our life in between lives and the process of getting to Earth.
I'm here to talk to you guys all about co-creating with God.
It's the end of an old way of living, being, and thinking.
I know that the universe is abuzz with the excitement of what's going on here on Earth.
If you look at it with your third eye, you'll see that the foot is actually out of the body, so it thinks that the body is astral traveling.
We know our thoughts create reality. If you have millions of people seeing these images, what's it doing to our world?
I have a memory of a life as a fridge in the 70s. Because inorganic objects also has consciousness in it.
This movement, made up of magical thinking, just be positive mantras, and pseudoscience, is spreading like wildfire. It's everywhere now. How many people do you know that are convinced by such ideas and are trying to convince you? Should we be concerned about what effects these beliefs have on our psyche? Yes. Yes, we should.
The world as you know it is coming to an end.
The moon remains a radically ambiguous and ceaselessly flowing quantum soup.
You've got the human field, which is obscuring the reptilian field.
By not resisting a bullet, it can't actually enter your skin.
Chocolate lines up planetarily with the sun. Chocolate is an octave of sun energy.
Law of attraction will not match you up with the part of us that is different than the part of you.
I know my story might seem odd to you, but if you think about it carefully, most ideologies we follow go along the same patterns of our own internal struggles. They lead us to biases, irrationality, and self-deception, whether we think we are susceptible to these things or not. So watch out. My story is full of mind traps. What about yours?
Salt now, grain of salt, you gotta take it with a...
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. It was really great today. A couple of hours ago, I met for the first time our reporter Mandy Lee Noble, who was visiting Sydney briefly. And it was really nice to meet Mandy Lee in person at IKEA. We shared a coffee at IKEA and a rather dry sort of muffin. Anyway, I will be seeing Mandy Lee, of course, next weekend here in Sydney as part of the SkeptiCon convention. Still tickets, skeptics.com.au. We have the Skeptic Zone Live. Stefan Soika, Richard Saunders, me. Maynard, Mandy Lee Noble, Heidi Robinson, and Eran Segev. And I think that's around about 2 or 2:15 on Saturday of the convention. But much more to see at the convention, more details at skeptics.com.au. And I think this is probably your last chance to snap up the dinner tickets for Saturday the 18th, the Skeptical Dinner, where we will be announcing things like the Bent Spoon Award. And latest news on that, Maynard will be your host for the evening. That looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And next week's show is, if all goes to plan, will be the live show we're recording at the convention. So hopefully, if all goes well and the microphones work and we don't fall over or do something crazy, next week's show will be the live show, and I hope to get that out the very next day. If the Skeptic Zone is a bit late next week, please understand it's because we're involved in a very big convention, but I always try to get it out weekly anyway. Thank you to all those people who help support the Skeptic Zone through Patreon or PayPal at skepticzone.tv. And as I like to say, without you, there would be no Skeptic Zone. Much appreciated. And if you want to make a comment on the show itself or ask a question, and we can use your voice, just download the Voice Bite app, links at skepticzone.tv, and tag your contribution, #SkepticZone, and I can get all those. But until next week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. You can be part of the show by downloading the Voice Bite app at voicebite.com and using the hashtag SkepticZone. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.